talking about artificial intelligence all week on AI Week and how it's already shaping the world around us. One of the main areas of concern, but also potentially of opportunity, is work. Is AI going to take our jobs? Our next guest says yes, and that's a good thing. Callum Chase is author of Surviving AI. Morning, Callum.
Morning, Rick. How are you?
So you reckon within 25 years, all jobs are going to be taken by AI?
Yes. I mean, I've got a very low degree of confidence about that number, 25 years. But okay. I think it's inevitable. If machines continue to get smarter and smarter, and there's no reason why they won't, then eventually they'll get to the point where they can do everything we can do for money, cheaper, better, and faster than us.
But do you not think there are certain... So I can see that in the kind of... in the jobs where it's all around information processing. But there are so many jobs that require sort of action in the physical world, in the physical space. So I guess an obvious example would be a plumber. And AI is going to really struggle, like the robotics, to create an AI that would be able to... I mean, the software, fine, but the physical form to replace a plumber, that feels really difficult.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it, how about as recently as 2 years ago, everybody thought that the first jobs to go would be repetitive blue-collar jobs doing manual work, and now we all realise, oops, it's professional jobs. It's jobs involving writing and jobs involving image creation that look like they're more vulnerable. And you're right, plumber is the iconic job that it looks really hard to replace by machines. But you have to look at the progress in robotics. You know, in 2015, there was a grand challenge in robotics, DARPA Grand Challenge. And I don't think any robot managed to walk more than about 20 yards. They couldn't go through it.
Just fell over,
they kept falling over. Yeah. And now, if you look at the videos coming out of Boston Dynamics, one of the leading robotics companies, they can dance much better than I can. Now, admittedly, that's setting the bar fairly low, but, you know, they're very, very impressive now. And they're going to keep getting better.
But presumably, that would create a lot of jobs in the robotics industry, initially at least.
So this is a really important point. I do think that eventually machines will get to the point where they can do pretty much all the jobs that we can do for money. Not all of them, but pretty much all of them. But until that point, there'll be lots of jobs for humans. Because what automation does is it creates wealth, it creates efficiency, which creates wealth, and that creates demand, and that creates jobs. And so, yes, there'll be new jobs in robotics. They will... You know, I don't think that the current generative AI systems, which are creating fantastic images from text, which are enabled to write essays and reports, they're not going to make humans unemployable. They're going to change the nature of the work we do. Until we get to this point, whether it's 25 years away or 20 years or 50 years, I don't know. But when we get to the point where they can beat us at everything that we do for money, then it's a different game. But until that point, an AI isn't going to take your job. But a person who works well with an AI might very well take your job.
Yeah, so it's sort of the idea that, at least initially, AI won't be as much of a competitor as a kind of complement to the work that humans are doing.
Exactly. And it'll make most people's work more interesting. It will make a lot of people nervous because they'll see machines doing things and they'll think, wow, that's pretty close to what I do for money. And they're going to have to retrain and relearn. I'll give you a great example. I write books. I write books on AI. I write books on travel. I wrote a book on Rome. And I used GPT-4 to do the first draft of many of the chapters. It halved the amount of time I took. I still had to do tons of work on it, but it halved the amount of time I took. It made it more fun, and it made me much more productive. And I think we're going to see that right across the economy.
Will we not always place a premium on interacting with people? Do we not just like that? Because there are lots of sort of spaces at the moment where automation would be cheaper and more efficient. So if you think about coffee shops, you know, you could just have a sort of electronic barista churning out coffees very quickly. But people don't really want that. People like human interaction. So is there a chance that we end up in a situation where people are willing to pay a bit of a premium to interact with people, look at art created by people, read words written by people, and so on? And you kind of end up with a sort of a slightly unfortunate two-tier world.
Well, when was the last time you went into a bank to get money out? I mean, Rick, you're a young fella, but I remember when you used to have to go to a bank to get money out. Now you do it through a hole in the wall.
Yes.
Very often, machines do jobs more efficiently than humans do, and when they do, we immediately choose them rather than the humans. And actually, machines are reaching into some surprising areas. It turns out that some aspects of therapy, some aspects of counselling can be done better by machines than by humans because they're so much cheaper and because they're available 24/7 and because they don't get tired, bored or frustrated. I think what will generally happen is, as I say, there'll be lots of jobs for humans until the point where machines can do everything that we can do better. And because machines make things more efficient, more services will be available. So there'll be more therapists. I mean, at the moment, we have a terrible situation that people with any kind of mental health are struggling to get attention, and machines will help with that. And some people will think, well, that's ghastly. I don't like the idea of a machine doling out advice, but that's often not what therapy is about. And it will just enable more of every service to happen, and they'll all happen more efficiently. And that's a good thing.
Yes, I can see that. I suppose the obvious question is, what are we all doing then? What are we doing with our lives? Like, how am I paying for this therapy, for example? Where's my money coming from? Just how am I occupying myself? I think a lot of people attach quite a lot of meaning to their job.
Actually, I'm not so sure about that. I think you do, Rick, and I think a lot of people do, but an awful lot of people do their jobs to put food on the table. It may give them something to do during the day, it may give their day some structure, but I don't think that, there's a lot of empirical evidence. There are various polling organisations who do research on this regularly, and it's almost always the case that about 90% of people don't really find meaning in their jobs. They do it to put food on the table. What we'll be doing is the most interesting parts of the jobs we already do. If you think of your daily work routine, I bet there's quite a few things that you think are wonderful and you love doing, and there's quite a few other things that you think, this is a bit of a chore, but I've got to do it. That's the bit that you can get rid of to the machine, and for most people that will be the case. What will also happen is that bit by bit, machines will take over more and more of our jobs, and so we'll have to acquire new skills and do more things. And the things that we do will always be, I think generally, more interesting, more value-adding, safer, and more fun.
We last spoke about this stuff, I think it was 8 years ago, wasn't it? Have you been surprised by how much progress has been made in that time?
In two ways. Initially, I was surprised how slow it was. I mean, for instance, self-driving cars I thought would be everywhere by 2018 or so. I was in good company, and they're not. They are coming, and they are now being well and truly trialled in San Francisco and other places. But latterly, with the arrival of transformers in 2017 and the generative pre-trained transformers, which we call generative AI, in the last year or two, as far as the public could see, I've been surprised by how quickly it's moving. GPT-4 in particular, which was released in March, is amazing. It looks little short of magic. So my timelines for things have been compressed. I mean, you rightly picked up that I have said that 25 years might be how long it takes. I now think it could be quicker than that.
Are you excited about the future?
Both excited and nervous, and I think that's the only sensible response. Like any technology, and any technology can have good or bad outcomes. Generally, the good outcomes outweigh the bad. This technology is so powerful that the good outcomes will be unbelievably good. The bad outcomes are pretty scary.
Yes, and we'll be delving into some of those potential bad outcomes over the rest of the week. Really nice speaking to you. Thanks so much, Callum.
My pleasure.
That's Callum Chase, author of Surviving AI.